in 2016, the Parliament of Canada passed federal legislation that allows eligible Canadian adults to request medical assistance in dying, or MAID as it is well known. And since that time, there have been numerous debates on what defines eligibility. So here for an update on this highly contentious issue is ARPA Canada's Director of Law and Public Policy, André Schutten. André, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate you taking time out.
Yeah, it's so good to be on the show again. Thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so for our viewers who maybe don't know, what is ARPA?
Yeah, ARPA Canada is the Association for Reform Political Action. We're a grassroots Christian advocacy organization that seeks to equip Christians to be politically engaged, aware of what's going on in their country in politics and law, and then also to bring a biblical perspective to our civil governments.
Well, thank you. Thank you for doing that important work. And now recently we've been hearing about legislation around MAID. Can you discuss what this is about and how it's going to impact the most vulnerable citizens of Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you mentioned, in 2016, the law was changed, which allowed people who were dying and suffering to end their lives prematurely with the help of a doctor. That's what we call assisted suicide or euthanasia. But then in 2021, the law changed again, where it was expanded to people who were suffering but were not dying. And obviously that puts people, particularly people with extreme disabilities, physical disabilities, or who are facing diseases or struggling with diseases or advanced age, it puts their lives at risk. It sends a signal to our culture and our society that says, you know, there's just some lives that just aren't worth living. And instead of walking alongside people, ministering to them as they suffer, instead we're saying, look, there's another option for you, and that is to end your life. And we, the society, we, the government, will help you do it.
Yeah, I think there is a lot of complexity about that broad term suffering, because who gets to decide what that is? And of course, as followers of Christ, we know that suffering is a part of existence, but God came to alleviate our suffering, and our value isn't attached to how we feel. And so I think this is really important to bring to the forefront. So how do you think we can respond in a way that reclaims and champions the value of all human life in Canada in a society that seems to be kind of, discarding some life?
Yeah, I think one of the things we need to do is be able to embrace the hard work that's required to walk alongside someone who is suffering. And so that's one thing. We also have to make sure we remind ourselves as Christians the importance of the Imago Dei, which is the doctrine that tells us that we all are made in the image of God. And that also includes people with extreme disabilities or facing a disease that creates all kinds of limitations on their lives. We have to see value in them, inherent dignity and worth in every single Canadian, and then walk alongside them. And then I think it also means finding our voice in the public square and also engaging with our elected representatives, engaging with the civil government to say our laws should not tolerate the devaluing of human lives simply because of a loss of ability, whether that's mental or physical capabilities, or because of advanced age. Instead, we need to lift up these people, value these people who are struggling, and walk alongside them, minister to them.
Yeah, now I'm really curious about your expert opinion on this. Why do you think our government is shifting this way?
So I tracked a lot of cultural change in the last decade or so, and certainly our civil government over a number of decades now is shifting away from our Judeo-Christian roots, the firm foundation on which we've developed human rights over the last number of centuries, which comes out of a Christian worldview, and it's shifting more and more towards a radical autonomy view that each individual can just make whatever choice they want, and whatever words or desires that come out of their mouth, that's what we need to do. The problem is that when somebody is suffering and say they want help to end their life, that's not actually what they want. There's a different unmet need that needs to be addressed. And that unmet need means addressing other types of suffering, loneliness, or feeling isolated, or feeling that other needs need to be met. That takes more work, obviously, but it's the more dignified way to approach our fellow citizens.
That is fascinating, because I think you've nailed it. It's this idea that we think that autonomy is the ultimate human value, and really it's community. We were created by a loving God, and we need to be loved and to express love. And ironically, this idea that autonomy is going to set us free really isn't. And you're probably seeing that in your work, aren't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're seeing that in the development of all kinds of different laws. This one here is a very tragic one, right? That we're abandoning some of our fellow Canadians through MAID legislation or assisted suicide legislation. Now, but there is hope, of course, and that is when Christians do engage, when they do engage carefully and winsomely, we do see change, and we just saw change actually happen earlier this year when the federal government backed off on their plan to expand assisted suicide to people whose sole underlying condition of their suffering was mental illness.
Mhm.
And the federal government did back off because of concerted effort by Christians and disability rights groups and physicians and others who said, we can't go here. Let's rethink this. So I want to encourage our viewers, don't get too cynical about politics. When we do engage patiently and persistently, the federal government can respond and change direction.
That is so good. Okay, so for our viewers who maybe want to get involved but feel kind of helpless or don't know where to go or turn, what can they do even right now to make a positive difference in our nation?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, specifically on this issue, I'd like to direct them to our campaign website on this issue, which is called carenotkill.ca, carenotkill.ca. And there's a training tool through there which will help you speak about this issue with other Canadians, whether they're Christian or not, and also a call to action there that you can participate as an informed citizen. And then if you want to know more about other issues around law and development of public policy from a Christian worldview perspective, then you also can check out our website, arpacanada.ca. That's ARPA Canada.ca, where there's information for you to be more informed, but also calls to action where you can be engaged.
That is so helpful. Well, again, I just want to applaud the effort. Thank you so much for what you're doing to make a difference. Our viewers, I hope you get engaged and involved. You can make a difference, first by loving, praying, but also by action. And so thank you so much for being with us, Andre. That was great. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.